the shop. This week's going to be a little different. We're going to do kind of a short video. I'm going to show a couple of the things that I recently acquired, and I purchased these items from a viewer, and I thought they were pretty interesting, and I just want to show them to you. One of them is a fairly common shop item that everybody will know, and then the other is fairly unique, and at least unique these days. At one time I think they were fairly common, but anyway, one of them, the standard item that everybody knows, is this Brown & Sharpe 586 height gauge. Now I needed a height gauge. The one that I'd been using up until this point was pretty rough. This was a German-made, it's a CSE German 0 to 9 inch, and it works well and it's accurate, but it's just really rough, and I wanted a new one. I primarily used this one for setting tool height on the lathe. I would just set this on the carriage and adjust it and set it at a fixed point, and every time I needed to change tool height I would just refer to it. I didn't use it on the plate very much, but I have before, and actually I used it in my last video to outlay the lines on the T-nuts that I made. So I needed a new one, or at least a better one, not necessarily new. It's actually far from new. This one's probably quite a bit older than I am, and I got the original case with it, the mahogany case, and even got the paperwork with it. So overall, pretty good. I'm real happy with it. The second item, which is pretty neat, I think it is, and I bought a lot of items, and this was one of them, and it's a tool holder. Now, these are pretty common as far as this type of tool holder, not necessarily the gooseneck. You know, you use them on a lathe, a shaper, or a planer. And this is a gooseneck holder, really designed to do threading on the lathe or run wide face tools. And this neck design, you know, allows or reduces the likelihood of chatter. At least as far as I've read, that's what I can tell. Now, I don't know a lot about these holders, and to be honest, I can't find a lot about them on the net, in the books, and I definitely can't find much about these flat nose tools. I'll bring you in close in just a second and get you a better look at this guy, but that's going to be a request of mine, is that if you know anything about these flat nose tools, or if you know where I can get any information on them, I'd really like to see it, because I haven't had much luck finding it. But I know you can get a real good finish with these wide nose tools. Ironworker did, the channel Ironworker. He ran a flat nosed tool in one of his videos, I think it was last week, and got a pretty neat finish, a fairly unique finish that you see on shaper tables and machine tables, and I'll show you that in a minute. We're going to run this tool, we're going to run it on a piece of PVC, and we're going to run it on a piece of cast iron, and we're going to see what kind of finish we can get with it. But first, I want to test the accuracy of some of my machine tools, just the common machine tools that I use around the shop. My 0 to 1 micrometers, my 2 sets of 0 to 6 inch calipers, and both these height gauges. So I'm going to bring you in close and we can get started. Alright, here's a little better look of this 586 height gauge. Now, it's in pretty good shape. It's just used condition, but it's in good used condition. And I really got a decent deal on it, and I'm really happy with it. It come with the nib, I guess you'd call it, to do measurements like under a lip. And it's had a little bit of damage to the front end here, a little cosmetic surgery somebody done. I just stoned it and got it back to more than usable condition. It's fine. It works well, and overall it's in pretty good shape. We're going to test it with our gauge blocks. We've got a set of gauge blocks, and if you've watched me for any amount of time, you'll know that that these gauge blocks were courtesy of the donations to my shop donations button on my homepage of my channel. A couple of viewers kicked in a few bucks, and I ended up buying them, and I'm really glad that I did, and I'm really glad that I have them, because otherwise I probably wouldn't. But we're going to check all this equipment with these gauge blocks. We're going to check our cheap calipers that we've been using for years. Now these are as cheap as it gets. I think they're a Harbor Freight special, but they measure down to the 1/2,000th, and they're pretty accurate. They're at least accurate enough for just general shop use. Then we're going to check my most used 0-to-1 mics. Now these are made by Central Tool. I've got a 0 to 6 inch set of mics. They're all Central Tool, and they're in pretty rough shape, but they do work. So we're going to check that, and then we're going to check our old German-made CSE height gauge. This guy's real rough. It's had you know, some improper storage, but it does work. So we're going to check it too. So first we're going to start off with the height gauge. We're going to check it down to 1/2,000th, and then we'll move up to 2 inch, and then 6 inch, and then we'll check it to I don't know, 9 inch or something like that. We'll see what we stack up here. We're just going to take our gauge block, run it down. Now these are just like, using one of these is a lot like using a set of, you know, mics. It's a lot by feel, and you know, to get repeatable results you need to apply repeatable pressure, you know, to the adjustments. So I just run them up, move my gauge block under, just slightly bring up the locking nut on the main part here, and then lock the adjustment, and then just adjust it down to where I get. See, now that's, if I move the height gauge, that's too much. So just back it off just slightly, and I would call that a 1/2 inch. And bring it up and look, and we're right on the money. Let's see if I can bring you in, get you a better look. Basically right on the money. So I'm happy with that. Now let's just go ahead and go to 2 inch. I think everybody should do this every now and then. You know, before I got these gauge blocks, I used the standards that came with my micrometer set, and they're really hard to use on the plate, but you know, you can do it. It's just not as accurate, I believe, as a set of gauge blocks. We'll just run that up under there. Now this is just a cheap economy grade set of gauge blocks, but the finish on them is real nice. They're made by MSC, as best as I can tell, and you know, as far as the accuracy that I need in this shop, they're more than adequate. Just get a slight resistance there so we know that we're in good contact. And again, so I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, now let's bring it out a little bit. Let's just ring a couple together. We'll go to 6 inch. We're going to ring our 4 and our 2 together, and I just take my finger. They seem to ring better if you wipe them with your hand. You know, make sure they're clean. They need to be extremely clean. Just wipe them with my hand and slide them together. And, I mean, they ring real tight. think this will be good enough after this. Snug that, snug it. Switch up a little. And the taller you get with this, the harder it is to get an accurate measurement, if you ask me. But just because you can cant these blocks fairly easily. Everyone should do this fairly often. At least, you know, check them. Because, you know, you can drop them or just knock them even and not really even know it and throw your measurements off, and then everything you do will be off. And it's right on the money. I mean, alright, happy with that. That's now let's go ahead and we're going to check our El Cheapo calipers. Now these are just a set of digital calipers and they measure to the 0.5 of an inch. We're just going to pull it on out to 6 inch while we got these blocks rung together. And I trust these to within 1/1000 of an inch. That's what I try to, you know, well, that's what I try to, you know, and they're right on 6 inch. Let's separate these and check them at 4. Right on the money at 4. Check it again. Right on the money. Let's check them at 2. So for a cheap set, I've been really pleased with these, and I've used these for probably 3 years and never had one problem with them. I've probably changed the batteries in these things, and it needs a battery now probably 4 times, and I've dropped them and whatnot, but luckily they've never landed directly on the ends. But they're just a rough set that I use around here. And, well, on the 1/2 inch block we get 4,995, so 0.5 off. When you get down on the smaller side of these, let's check a little smaller block and see. Let's try this 100,000ths of an inch. We'll check that and see what kind of reading we get. So yeah, 995. So they're off about 0.5 on the short end of the scale. Let's try the 1 inch and see what we get. 1 inch. 1 inch. Try the 1/2 inch again. Yeah, 4,995. So below, looks like below an inch, they're off about 0.5 because this is 100,000ths. 995. So they're not perfect. Here's a 70,000ths block. 700,000, sorry. 6. Yeah, so below an inch, they're really off about 0.5, which is fine. You know, I've checked these 100 times and pretty aware of it. But yeah, something to account for. You know, you wouldn't know that if you didn't check them. So really, overall, I'm really happy with these. And I've got another set here of Mitutoyo. This is a really old, really rough set that actually I decommissioned them, but I use them for real rough stuff like wood and whatnot. They're fairly accurate, but the ends are beat up on them. I don't trust these on this side at all. But they're pretty close, you know, about the same, maybe a little better on the small side. 2 inch. Yeah, see, it's about 1,000, saying about 199, 1992. So these have been beat around really bad. They've been dropped 100 times, and I don't really trust them. But for like woodwork and stuff, I will use these. And every once in a while, you'll see me use them on the lathe, but it's just when I'm in the roughing stages of making something. So, you know, even though I do have a decent name brand set, I prefer to use my cheap set. But I would like a nice set of calipers. But you know, they're a good set's $100 or more, and it's hard to justify. Now let's check our 0 to 1 mics, and this is the set that the one that I always grab. I have two 0 to 1 mics. Both of them are central, but they're two different designs, and this is a really slim mic, and I really enjoy using it. And let's check it. Let's see where we're at. We're at about 5, so let's check the 1/2 inch. And it's on the money. 1/2 inch. Alright, let's check it up to 1 inch. Alright, my camera cut off on me right at the end there, or right at the 1 inch, but I mean, I guess you guys, I assume you guys get the drift. These are pretty accurate, and we're right on the money at 1 inch. And I go through all my tools and do this ever so often. All my, you know, mics, and I just check them all just to make sure that they're whatever reading they're giving me is accurate. And I really enjoy doing it. I really like checking stuff and making sure that they're, you know, true. And you know, all this stuff, none of this on this plate was really expensive. You know, the plate was less than $100. Now I'm talking US. You know, I got a lot of viewers that are, you know, out of the States, and some of their stuff's a lot more expensive. But here in the States, you know, none of this stuff is really that pricey, and all of this, other than the gauge blocks, are secondhand. It just takes a little time to acquire it. I know, well, at least it has for me, and it does for most, I assume. But yeah, let's say you want to set your height gauge to, you know, this is 3 inch. Well, you can just take your 3 inch gauge block and set it. And if you were comparing something, or if you wanted to check the height of something that was really close to that, you know, now you can go over and sweep your item, and you can tell how far off a 3 inch you are. So that's how you would, you know, set up a height gauge or a surface gauge to check height on something, not just to, you know, check and see if it's parallel or even square. You know, you can actually compare with them, and that's pretty neat. It's pretty fun to do. So final thing, let's check this old crusty CSE German height gauge. I really wish this guy was in good shape because I like its design. It's a real simple design, and it's small and compact. Let's bring it down. This one does not have a fine adjustment, so you just have to bring the slider down till it touches and feel it. And that is a 4 inch block. And I'm not even going to try to get you to see these measurements because they're hard to read because of the finish and whatnot, but it is on the money. And check that with 2. Yeah, so it's good. I got this at an auction, you know, in a box, and I paid almost nothing for it, so I don't have anything in it. But it's been useful. I've really used it actually quite a bit, but mostly just for lathe tool setup, like I said. 100 thousandths, and yes, so there you go. That's a quick little, you know, demonstration of me calibrating my tools, or at least just checking them. We didn't really change anything because it wasn't necessary. The tools are pretty good. So let's go over to the shaper and we'll talk about this tool holder and some of the tooling I'm going to use. Alright, so in the shaper here I have a piece of PVC and I just machined it just to get it flat because the tool that we're going to be using is a finishing tool. It's not a roughing tool, and I just stuck this in the shaper vise, machined it flat, 30 thousandths of an inch per stroke, 20 thousandths depth. So it's easily visible, the step over lines in this piece, and I'll bring you in close and show you in just a second. We did it with just a round nose tool, and we're going to finish it with this gooseneck holder with a flat nose 5/16, and all we did was knock the sharp corners off of it. And we're going to set it up to where the flat of this tool is parallel with the work, or at least very close to parallel. And we're going to offset it probably by a degree or two, slightly. We're going to advance from right to left, and this tool will be slightly canted. That way it progressively cuts on the piece, on the whole face of the tool, and I'm going to try to get as little step over line as possible. That's the idea. Now, like I said, I'm no expert with this tooling and can't seem to find much on it. So I'm going to bring in, we're going to set this up, and we'll cut this guy. Alright, now here's the finish we're going to try to improve. And like I said, I've cut it with this round nose tool. You can hear the step over, so that's 30 thousandths of an inch, 20 thousandths depth. And I'm going to bring you in a little closer. You can see it. You know, I would consider that a decent finish. You know, it's not that bad. But let's see if by using this tool we can get a better finish. And what we're going to do is I'm going to set this up to where it's just slightly canted. You know, I'm exaggerating right now. That way, each time it steps over, it just barely, you know, it actually cuts across the whole face, but it cuts progressively. And I've done this once before and got a really good finish, so I'm just going to demonstrate it for you guys. And the iron worker, he was taking really large steps, which is what you see here on this machine table. And you can feel that texture, but it's not large. But you see that on a lot of these old machine tables, the lines. And when I got this shaper, I had never seen this before, so I was fairly, you know, I was like, well, I wonder why it's like that. But both surfaces are, and I'm assuming it was done with a wide face tool. So let's get you back, and we'll get set up and try to cut this guy. Alright, before we change this tool out, I want to tell you about a situation that I ran in yesterday with this shaper, and it could have been a horrible situation. Now, it's pretty cold out here. It's probably 42 to 45 degrees in the shop here, and if you ask me, that's cold. And it's probably 20 something outside, 27. So the oil in this machine is really thick, and I ran this thing yesterday for probably 5 minutes just messing around, and I looked up at my oil tower, which is this here, and it wasn't oiling. The machine had stopped oiling for some reason. And in the foot of this machine is where all the oil's kept, and it has a check valve in there. And I assumed it was because the oil was real thick and the check valve was stuck, and I was correct. But if I wouldn't have took the side cover off this and tapped on that check valve, and it started oiling immediately after that. But if I wouldn't have done that and I would have ran this thing, it would have locked the ram up potentially. Could have done some serious damage to the machine. And if you guys remember back in, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I did a shaper or machine shop maintenance, just general video. And in that video, I mentioned never to trust, at least completely, the oiling system on a machine. And if you can oil it manually, do it. And I live by that. And I always check my machines to make sure they're oiling the way that they should. Because if I wouldn't, at least in this situation, and I would have ran this thing fast and hard, there's a lot of moving surfaces, a lot of sliding surfaces on this machine and the RAM. I mean, it wouldn't have took long for this thing to just self-destruct. So I'm glad I caught it, and you should check your machines too, because if you're out in a shop like this and with large temperature swings, it may not be oiling at all because the oil gets so thick. So just a little note there for you guys, and I really think it's important. It's really critical, to be honest, to the machine. So let's change this tool out, and we'll cut this PVC and see if we can improve the finish. I'm just going to run this down and set that cutter as parallel as I can to the vise. Because the top of this machine vise is relatively parallel with the left and right movement of the table. And then I'm just going to slightly cant it just a little in order for it to kind of ramp up on the surface. Now I'm just trying this. I don't know that this is the way it's supposed to be done. Like I said, I wanted to spark a conversation more than anything because I just don't have a lot of information on these wide nose tools or the use of them. I'm going to tap that over just a little more. Let's use something less destructive. Alright, I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to bring you in closer and we're going to cut this guy. We're going to cut it at the same 30 thousandths step and see if we can get a better finish than what we have here with our standard, radius tool. It's going to take about 4 thousandths. No chatter. Snugged up that little set screw on the back. Seemed to help. We're getting a little smearing. But if we were to use a coolant, we could probably avoid that. Wow. Other than the little bit of chatter we got in the beginning, and the smearing, that is definitely a better finish. Keep in mind this is 30 thousandths per step. So we're still getting just a visual, you can just see it. I can't really feel it. Maybe just a little with my fingernail. Let's slow down the step over and try it again. Go 10 thousandths step over, and we're just going to take 2 thousandths to a real light cut. So slightly this way. Shaving. That is an amazing finish. It is amazing. Check that out. You can just see the rainbow type effect. We got a lot of shadow back here, but we'll get it out and look at it. That is an amazing finish. Alright, look at that. That's the finish we got. No coolant, nothing with that flat nose tool on a piece of PVC. And that is impressive. I mean, that is better than the factory finish. You know, it's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty good. And I'd have to say I'm pretty happy with that. So let's try it on a piece of cast iron, and then we'll call it good. I haven't changed the setup of the tool. It's exactly the way it was before. We got a piece of cast iron in here, which I believe is ductile iron. Not 100% sure, but that's what I believe it is. And the finish is pretty good on it really right now. We're just going to see if we can improve it. I don't really want to mess with the angle that this tool's at right now, so I'm not going to rough it up first and then go over it. I mean, you get the idea. In the vise here, I got a piece of copper wire because both these sides are not exactly parallel, so in order for it to push up against the fixed jaw solidly, this soft copper wire will help that. It'll smash in the places where the most pressure is, and you put it, hopefully, a fairly even pressure on it. We're going to try it. We're at 44 strokes a minute, and we're just going to barely skim this guy and see if we can get a good finish with it. Alright, fast forward a bit, and I was getting a little chatter and wasn't satisfied with it, and we were just hitting out here, so I slowed it down a little bit, and it seems to make a big difference. You know, cast iron's different, and like I said, don't have a lot of experience with this tool, so it's kind of a trial and error thing. But what I'm getting now looks to be a really good finish. It's not perfect, but it's really good. We're going 20 thousandths per stroke and probably 1/1000 and a half to 2 thousandths of an inch depth of cut. And I'm really satisfied with it. And once this guy gets done, we'll go over to the bench and we'll look at it and that piece of PVC together, and we'll make a conclusion. Well, I just pulled this out of the shaper, and man, that's a nice finish. Not perfect, but really good. You can barely see, or I can barely see, the step over. Now that was 20 thousandths of an inch per stroke and 10 strokes per minute, so we was running it real slow. But I found that if I run it faster than that, the tool was getting a little harmonic. And I believe it's where I had that piece of 5/16 inch tool steel hung out of that holder a little farther than I probably should have. But you know, like I said, I don't know a lot about that tooling and the use of those flat nose tools, and we're just experimenting here. But man, that's nice. And look at that PVC. I mean, I would consider that, you know, better than the factory finish. So I'm really happy with that. I'd like to know more about that tooling, and I've done a pretty good job, I think, of looking, and I can't seem to find much on it. And if any of you guys have, please, you know, enlighten me, because I got a machine that'll push them, and I'd like to learn more about them. So there we go. Turned out real nice. I'm not for sure that this is ductile iron, and you can see the little specks and spots in it just from the actual cast itself, but the finish is super smooth. Well guys, that's it for this week. A little short, but you know, I really appreciate you guys watching. I'm really surprised, you know, that that there's not as much information out there on those flat nose tools as I would have thought that there was. You know, I go digging and I can't find much on them. So if you know anything about them, you know, chime in. I really, really want to say thanks to all my viewers, all my new subscribers, and all my old ones. It's been a pretty interesting venture, this YouTube thing. And it's been testing, like last week was pretty testing. You know, I've got satellite internet and a fairly slow computer. And last week's video took all day, from 5 o'clock in the morning, probably 5:30 probably, till, you know, late at night to get it up. Several failed upload attempts at about 2 hours apiece. You know, you love it when you get an hour and 45 minutes into a 2-hour upload and it fails, and then you have to start all over again. So we get them up when we can. We try our best. You know, we don't always succeed, but we try. Hopefully this video is a little shorter, and we'll upload a little quicker and easier. I really want to say thanks to my viewers who are kicking into the cause. Without them, you know, a lot of this wouldn't be possible. You know, the little things do make a big difference. You know, some of the items that have been donated to the cause or that I've purchased, you know, I really, really, really appreciate it, you know, to the fullest extent. Those guys know who they are, and I really, really want to thank them. And, you know, a few guys have donated to the donations button on my homepage, and that's what allowed me to get these gauge blocks and the precision angles and several other little things, you know, that make it easy. The video card that's recording this, you know, video, you know, they all come from the viewers, and a lot of them are really, really, you know, generous, and I want to thank them. That's enough of that. I appreciate you watching, guys. If you haven't, make sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking on my little guy up here and hit the bell for notifications. And as always, I'll see you next time.